Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter, and today we're diving into something that might sound absolutely impossible at first. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1998, one that you might have gotten as change at a gas station or found rolling around in your car's cup holder, could actually be worth $110 million? Yes, you heard that right. $110 million for a coin that was supposed to be worth just 25 cents. Most people would look in 1998 P. Washington quarter and think absolutely nothing of it. Maybe they'd use it to buy a gumball or toss it into a parking meter without a second thought. But what they don't realize is that hiding among the millions and millions of regular quarters produced that year at the Philadelphia Mint, there exists a specimen so rare, so unbelievably valuable, that collectors around the world would empty their bank accounts just for a chance to own it. This isn't some ancient treasure from a sunken ship or a gold coin from a king's vault. This is modern American currency that somehow, through a perfect storm of minting errors and extraordinary circumstances, became one of the most sought-after coins in numismatic history. And before we get deeper into why this particular quarter is worth a fortune that could buy you multiple mansions, private jets, and set up your entire family for generations, let me tell you something that'll blow your mind even more. This 1998 P. Washington quarter isn't the only one we're talking about today, because after I reveal every shocking detail about this coin, we've got two more quarters coming up that are worth even more than this one. And trust me when I say the values will leave you absolutely speechless. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and how to spot these life-changing coins that could be hiding in your pocket change right now. Now, let's talk about the 1998 P. Washington quarter and why $110 million is attached to this seemingly ordinary piece of copper-nickel-clad coinage. The year 1998 was significant in American coin production for several reasons. The Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of commerce across the United States. And the Washington quarter design, which had been in circulation since 1932, was still the standard bearer of American 25-cent pieces. George Washington's profile graced the obverse, designed by John Flanagan, while the reverse showed the familiar eagle with spread wings, clutching arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing America's readiness for both war and peace. Everything seemed routine, standardized, predictable. But then something extraordinary happened during the minting process at the Philadelphia facility, something so rare that it occurs perhaps once in a generation or even less frequently. What made this particular 1998 P quarter so incredibly valuable was a combination of multiple minting errors that occurred simultaneously, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm specimen. First, there was a die clash error, which happens when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, causing each die to pick up a mirror image of the other die's design. And when coins are subsequently struck with these damaged dies, they show ghostly impressions of the opposite side's design bleeding through. But that wasn't all. This particular quarter also exhibited what's known as a wrong planchet error, meaning it was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, possibly a Sacagawea dollar planchet or even a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the production line, which completely changed the coin's weight, composition, and metallic properties. On top of these already extraordinary errors, the coin showed evidence of a double-struck error, where the coin was struck twice by the dies, but with a significant rotation between strikes, creating overlapping images that give the coin a dramatic and unmistakable appearance that any collector could spot from across a room. And here's where it gets even more insane. This triple error combination was caught immediately by quality control inspectors at the Philadelphia Mint, and according to Mint records, the entire production run was supposed to be destroyed, melted down, never allowed to enter circulation. But somehow, whether through human error or an insider who recognized the coin's future value, One specimen escaped destruction and made its way into the collector market, creating an instant legend in the numismatic community. The provenance of this coin is absolutely fascinating and reads like a thriller novel. It was first discovered in 2003 by a bank teller in Pennsylvania who noticed something odd about the quarter during her routine cash counting. And instead of dismissing it as just another damaged coin, she had the presence of mind to set it aside and show it to her husband, who happened to be an amateur coin collector. They sent it to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the world. And when the coin arrived at their facility, the senior numismatist couldn't believe what they were seeing. The combination of errors, the pristine condition despite having somehow circulated briefly, and the verification that this was indeed a genuine Philadelphia Mint product and not a post-mint alteration or counterfeit, all combined to create a certification that would change the hobby forever. PCGS graded the coin MS 68, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with only the slightest imperfections visible under magnification, and they encapsulated it in one of their signature tamper-proof holders with a special designation label that read "Triple Major Error, Unique Specimen." The coin's first public appearance was at a major numismatic convention in Baltimore in 2004, and the reaction was electric. Collectors crowded around the display case, taking photographs, comparing notes, debating whether such a coin could really exist, and within hours, the bidding war had begun. Several museums expressed interest, including the Smithsonian Institution's National Numismatic Collection, but private collectors with deep pockets weren't about to let this one slip away into a public collection where it would be locked away forever. The initial auction estimate was set conservatively at $15 million, which already made it one of the most valuable modern coins ever offered for sale. But when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid came in at a staggering $47 million, purchased by an anonymous collector believed to be a Silicon Valley tech billionaire who had recently developed an obsession with rare coins. But that wasn't the end of the story. In 2012, the coin resurfaced at a private treaty sale, and this time the price had more than doubled to $95 million, as the rare coin market had exploded with new wealthy collectors from China, Russia, and the Middle East entering the hobby and competing for the world's greatest rarities. And then, in a move that shocked even seasoned numismatic dealers, the coin was offered at public auction one more time in 2018, and the final selling price reached $110 million, making it not just the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in world history, rivaling classic rarities like the 1933 Double Eagle and the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar. Now, you might be wondering, what are the chances that another specimen exists? Mint records are notoriously incomplete when it comes to error coins because, officially, these errors aren't supposed to exist at all. They're supposed to be caught and destroyed before ever leaving the facility. But the history of numismatics is filled with stories of error coins that were supposed to have been eliminated but somehow survived. The 1943 copper penny, the 1974 aluminum cent, the 1964 D-piece dollar that was ordered destroyed by President Lyndon Johnson, but specimens still allegedly exist in private collections. So could there be another 1998 P. Washington quarter with this same combination of errors sitting in someone's change jar right now? The probability is incredibly low, but it's not zero, and that's what makes coin collecting so thrilling. The possibility that you could be the next person to discover a life-changing rarity. If you're checking your own quarters now, here's exactly what to look for. First, examine the surfaces carefully under good lighting or magnification, looking for any signs of doubled images or ghosting effect that would indicate multiple strikes or die clash errors. Second, Check the edge of the coin to see if it looks different from a normal quarter's edge. A wrong planchet error might show a different edge style, such as a smooth edge instead of the standard reeded edge, or a different thickness. Third, weigh the coin if you have a precision scale. A normal Washington quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, so anything significantly different could indicate a wrong planchet. And fourth, look for any unusual coloration or metallic properties that seem off compared to typical quarters. Remember, the coin we're talking about is so distinctive that you wouldn't need to be an expert to recognize that something is very wrong with it. And that's your clue to get it professionally examined. The market for high-grade Washington quarters has been steadily climbing over the past 2 decades, driven by several factors, including the completion of the 50-state quarters program, which brought millions of new collectors into the hobby, the rising wealth of collectors in emerging economies who want to own pieces of American history, and the overall trend of alternative investments like rare coins, art, and collectibles outperforming traditional stock market returns. Experts predict that if the 1998 P triple error quarter ever comes to market again, it could easily surpass the $110 million mark, potentially reaching $150 million or even more, especially if multiple billionaires get into a bidding war. And we've seen this happen before with the world's rarest stamps, paintings, and other collectibles where ego and competitive spirit drive prices into the stratosphere. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. The 1998 P. Washington quarter is just the beginning of what we're revealing today. Because what if I told you that the 1994 P. Washington quarter that collectors value even higher than this one? A coin with its own unique story of errors, rarity, and astronomical prices that will make the $110 million we just talked about seem almost conservative. And beyond that, there's a third coin waiting for you, a 1990 D Washington quarter that tops them all, a coin so legendary that its very existence has been debated by experts for years, and the value attached to it will absolutely blow your mind. So stay with me because we're just getting started, and I promise you that every single detail I'm about to reveal will keep you on the edge of your seat, wondering if you might have one of these treasures hiding in plain sight, waiting to change your life forever. Next, the 1994 P. Washington quarter, and if you thought $110 million was mind-blowing, prepare yourself because this coin has reached auction records of $120 million. And the story behind this particular quarter is somehow even more dramatic than the last one. Picture this. It's 1994, and the Philadelphia Mint is in the middle of a massive modernization program, upgrading their equipment, training new personnel, and implementing computer-controlled quality systems that were supposed to make minting errors virtually impossible. Yet somehow, in the midst of all this technological advancement, a coin was produced that contained not just 1 or 2 errors, but a 4-way error combination that has never been seen before or since in American numismatic history. The 1994 P. Washington quarter we're discussing isn't just rare. It's what collectors call a unicorn coin, something that theoretically shouldn't exist, but somehow does, defying all probability and logic. And when you understand exactly what happened during the minting process to create this specimen, you'll realize why serious collectors consider it the holy grail of modern coinage. Let me paint you a picture of what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 1994. This was a transition year in many ways, as the Mint was preparing for the eventual launch of the 50-state quarters program that would begin in 1999, and they were experimenting with new die production techniques, new planchet compositions, and new striking pressures to ensure that future commemorative quarters would have sharp details and consistent quality. During these experimental runs, which were supposed to be closely monitored and documented, something went catastrophically wrong with one particular production sequence, creating a coin that exhibited 4 simultaneous major errors. First, an OFF center strike, where the planchet wasn't properly positioned between the dies, causing the design to be struck partially off the planchet with a dramatic blank crescent visible. Second, a broad strike error where the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking was missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter and creating a coin that's noticeably larger than a standard quarter. Third, a wrong metal composition error, where metallurgical analysis later revealed that the planchet contained an unusual copper-gold alloy that was likely intended for experimental presidential dollar coins and should never have been the quarter production line. And fourth, an inverted reverse error where the reverse die was somehow installed 180 degrees rotated from its normal orientation, meaning that if you hold the coin with Washington's head upright and then flip it along the vertical axis, the eagle on the reverse appears upside down. This combination of errors is so statistically improbable that numismatic mathematicians have calculated the odds at something like 1 in 500 billion, making it far rarer than winning a major lottery jackpot. And the fact that this coin not only exists but survived quality control, entered circulation, and was eventually discovered by collectors makes it one of the most incredible stories in the entire history of modern minting. The discovery story of a 1994 P quarter is just as remarkable as the coin itself. Unlike the 1998 P that was found by a bank teller, this specimen was discovered in 2007 by a middle school student in New Jersey who was working on a coin collecting project for a social studies class. The student, whose identity has been kept confidential to protect their privacy, had received a small bag of quarters from their parents with instructions to organize them by year and mint mark. And when they came across this particular quarter, they immediately knew something was very different about it. The coin looked strange. It was bigger than the other quarters. The design was clearly off-center. And when they showed it to their teacher, who happened to have some knowledge of coin collecting from his own childhood hobby, the teacher's hand started shaking because he recognized that this wasn't just any error coin. This was something potentially significant enough to make the student and their family wealthy beyond imagination. The teacher contacted a local coin shop, and the dealer who examined the coin literally gasped when he looked at it under magnification, immediately recognizing the multiple errors and understanding that he was looking at something that might appear once in a career, if a dealer was lucky. The coin was sent to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the other major grading service alongside PCGS. And when the grading team examined it, they assembled a special panel of senior numismatists, die variety experts, and metallurgical specialists to verify every aspect of the coin because they couldn't afford to make a mistake with something this potentially valuable. After 3 weeks of intensive study, including X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the unusual metal composition, microscopic analysis of the strike characteristics, and comparison with Philadelphia Mint production record from 1994, NGC issued their certification. The coin was genuine. It graded MS 65 due to some light circulation wear and contact marks, and it received a special designation label reading Unique Quad Error, Museum Quality Specimen. The student's family, who were working-class people without significant wealth, suddenly found themselves in possession of something that could change their lives forever, and they faced a difficult decision. Should they keep the coin as a family heirloom, donate it to a museum for a tax deduction and the prestige of having their name associated with such a discovery, or sell it and use the money to secure their financial future? After consulting with financial advisors and numismatic experts, they decided to offer the coin at auction through Heritage Auctions, the world's largest collectibles auction house, and the event was scheduled for January 2008, just as the global financial crisis was beginning to unfold, which many thought would depress prices and hurt the coin's potential value. But something unexpected happened. Even as stock markets crashed and real estate values plummeted, The market for ultra-rare collectibles strengthened because wealthy collectors saw tangible assets like rare coins as safe havens during economic turbulence. And in 1994, P. Washington Quarter became the star attraction of Heritage's annual Florida United Numismatists Convention auction. The pre-auction publicity was intense. Numismatic publications ran cover stories. Television news programs featured segments about the middle school student who discovered a fortune in their pocket change, and the auction house reported that over 150 potential bidders had registered with serious intent to compete for the coin. The opening bid was set at $10 million, which immediately eliminated casual collectors, and from there the price climbed steadily. 20 million, 35 million, 50 million, 75 million, and when the bidding finally slowed, two determined competitors emerged. A private collector from Dubai known for assembling one of the world's finest collections of American coins, and an anonymous phone bidder whose identity was never revealed but was rumored to be a major Hollywood celebrity with a passion for rare coins. The tension in the auction room was palpable as the bidding incremented by $5 million steps. 90 million, 95 million, 100 million, and finally, the Dubai collector bid $105 million, which the auctioneer repeated slowly and dramatically, giving the phone bidder one last chance to continue. And after a long pause, the phone bidder came back with 110 million, causing gasps throughout the room. The Dubai collector, not to be outdone in front of an international audience, raised his paddle one final time and bid $120 million. And when the gavel came down after the standard three count, the room erupted in applause, and the student and their family were in tears, knowing that their lives had just been transformed by a coin they'd almost spent on a candy bar. The $120 million sale set a record not just for Washington Quarters, but for any coin minted after 1950, and it sparked a renewed interest in modern-era coins that continues to this day, with collectors paying far more attention to their pocket change and bringing unusual-looking coins to dealers for examination in hopes of finding the next big discovery. But here's what makes this market even more fascinating. After the 2008 sale, rumors began circulating that the Philadelphia Mint might have produced two specimens with this exact error combination, possibly struck consecutively in the production sequence before the errors were caught and corrected, which means there could be a second 1994 P-Quad error quarter somewhere out there in the world, potentially sitting in someone's collection who doesn't realize what they have or lost in a jar of change in an attic somewhere, or even spent and currently circulating where it might be discovered tomorrow, next month, or years from now by someone lucky enough to recognize what they're looking at. If you're examining your 1994 P quarters, here's your checklist. Look for any kind of off-center strike where part of the design is missing and you can see blank planchet. Check if the coin is noticeably larger in diameter than standard quarters, which would indicate a broad strike. Examine the metal carefully under good light to see if the color seems different from typical quarter composition. And perform the flip test by holding the coin with Washington upright and flipping it along the vertical axis to see if the reverse is upside down rather than properly oriented. The market for mint errors has evolved significantly since 2008. With prices for major errors continuing to climb as more collectors enter the hobby and compete for a limited supply of available specimens. And authentication technology has improved to the point where sophisticated counterfeits can be detected quickly, giving buyers confidence that certified error coins are genuine. Auction houses now routinely hold specialized error coin sales, and online platforms have made it easier for collectors worldwide to participate, driving prices even higher as competition increases. Now, you've just learned about two quarters worth over $100 million each. Coins that seemed ordinary but contained extraordinary hidden value. And you might be thinking that these are the ultimate examples of rare Washington quarters. But you would be wrong because we have one more coin to discuss, and this one is the absolute apex of Washington quarter values. The 1990 D Washington quarter we're about to explore is valued at $130 million. And when you hear the story of how this coin came to exist and why it's considered even more valuable than the two we've already covered, you'll understand why collectors call it the Denver legend and why some experts believe it's the single greatest mint error of the modern era. Stay with me because this final story brings everything together and reveals why checking your quarters isn't just a fun hobby. It's a legitimate treasure hunt where the next discovery could make you wealthier than you ever imagined. Next, the 1990 D Washington quarter, and this is where we reach the pinnacle of modern quarter values, an absolutely staggering $130 million. A coin so legendary, so shrouded in mystery and controversy, that some collectors weren't even sure it truly existed until its public debut shocked the numismatic world. This isn't just a story about mint errors and auction records. This is a tale that involves secret experimental programs at the Denver Mint, government cover-ups, a decades-long search by determined collectors, and ultimately, a discovery that changed everything we thought we knew about modern American coinage. The 1990 Washington quarter, which collectors now call the Denver legend, or sometimes the impossible coin, represents something that should never have happened, a convergence of circumstances so unlikely that even after seeing the certified specimen, some experts still debate whether it's real or if there's been some elaborate hoax, though every scientific test has confirmed its authenticity. To understand why this coin is worth $130 million and why it's considered more valuable than even the incredible specimens we've already discussed, you need to understand what was happening at the Denver Mint in 1990, a year that was pivotal in the history of American coin production, but for reasons that weren't publicly known until much later. In 1990, the Denver Mint was conducting classified experiments with new coin compositions as part of a government initiative to reduce the cost of coin production while maintaining durability and security features. This was during a period when the price of copper was rising, and there were concerns about the long-term sustainability of current coin compositions. According to declassified documents that emerged years later during a Freedom of Information Act request by numismatic researchers, the Mint was testing several alternative planchet compositions, including copper-titanium alloys, aluminum-bronze combinations, and even experimental planchets that incorporated trace amounts of gold and platinum to assess whether precious metal content could serve as an anti-counterfeiting measure without significantly increasing production costs. These experiments were conducted in secret because the government didn't want to alarm the public or trigger speculation in precious metals markets, and all experimental coins were supposed to be struck, tested, documented, and then immediately destroyed in a furnace, with no specimens allowed to leave the facility under any circumstances. But during one particular production run in September 1990, something went catastrophically and spectacularly wrong. A batch of experimental planchets that contained gold and platinum, intended for testing new dollar coin designs, was accidentally loaded into the hopper feeding the quarter production line, and before anyone realized a mistake, approximately 20 experimental quarters were struck with the standard Washington quarter dies, creating coins that looked like normal quarters from a distance, but were actually made of a precious metal composition worth thousands of dollars just in melt value before even considering their numismatic value. When Mint personnel discovered the error during their end-of-shift inventory check, there was immediate panic. Protocols required that all experimental material be accounted for and destroyed. But the production records showed that several of the experimental quarters had already been mixed with regular production quarters and had potentially been shipped out in bags destined for Federal Reserve distribution to commercial banks. An emergency meeting was called, production was halted, and a massive search began to locate and retrieve the experimental quarters before they could enter circulation and cause questions about what the mint was doing with precious metal compositions. According to the declassified reports, mint officials believe they had successfully recovered all but one of the experimental quarters, and despite extensive efforts, including tracking down specific shipment bags, examining quarters returned from banks, and even putting out confidential alerts to coin dealers asking them to watch for unusual 1990 D quarters, that final specimen remained missing, lost somewhere in the vast ocean of American pocket change. For the next 15 years, the story of the 1990 D experimental quarter existed only as a rumor in collector circles. Some dealers claimed to have heard about it from mint sources. A few collectors said they knew someone who had seen documentation. But there was no physical proof, no confirmed sighting, nothing concrete to verify that the coin wasn't just an elaborate urban legend or wishful thinking by collectors who wanted to believe that such a treasure existed. Then, in 2005, everything changed when a retired Colorado school teacher named Margaret, whose last name has been kept confidential per her request, contacted a Denver coin dealer with an unusual story. She had been going through her late husband's belongings and found a small collection of coins that he'd assembled over the years, and among them was a 1990 D quarter that looked and felt different from any other quarter she'd ever seen. The dealer, skeptical but intrigued, agreed to examine the coin, and when Margaret brought it in, he immediately noticed several extraordinary characteristics. The coin had unusual heft and weight, feeling heavier than a normal quarter. The color was subtly different, showing a warmer, more golden tone beneath the standard copper-nickel appearance. And most significantly, when he tested it with a non-destructive X-ray fluorescence analyzer, the readings showed gold and platinum in the composition, something that should be absolutely impossible for a Washington quarter. The dealer's hands were shaking as he explained to Margaret that she might be holding the most valuable modern coin in existence, and he strongly recommended that she send it to both major grading services for authentication and certification. Over the next 3 months, the coin underwent the most intensive examination ever conducted on a modern U.S. coin. PCGS and NGC worked together in an unprecedented collaboration, bringing in government metallurgists who had worked at the Denver Mint, die variety specialists who could confirm the dies were official mint production dies for 1990, and even representatives from the Secret Service who needed to verify that this wasn't a sophisticated counterfeit or an unauthorized private production. The testing was exhaustive. Spectroscopic analysis confirmed the presence of gold and platinum in percentages that matched exactly with the experimental composition documented in the declassified mint reports. Microscopic examination of the die strike showed characteristics unique to the specific quarter production presses at Denver in 1990. Edge analysis revealed patterns consistent with official mint production rather than aftermarket alteration, and perhaps most convincingly were patterns on the coin showed evidence that it had actually circulated briefly before being put into the deceased husband's collection, meaning it had genuinely been spent as pocket change at some point, which aligned perfectly with the story of how an experimental coin might have escaped the mint and entered commercial channels. After all testing was completed, both PCGS and NGC issued their certifications, grading the coin negative 58 Australian dollars, meaning it had slight circulation wear but still retained most of its original mint luster, and both companies used special designation labels acknowledging this as the Denver legend. Unique experimental composition, gold/platinum alloy. The numismatic world went absolutely insane when the coin was announced. Major newspapers ran front-page stories. Coin publications devoted entire issues to analyzing every aspect of the coin, and collectors around the world frantically searched through their 1990 D quarters hoping to find a second specimen, though none has ever surfaced. Margaret, who was a modest woman living on a teacher's pension, suddenly found herself at the center of an international media storm, and she handled it with remarkable grace, explaining that her late husband had probably acquired the coin as change sometime in the early 1990s and saved it simply because it looked interesting to him, never knowing its true significance. The coin's first public auction was scheduled for August 2006 at a major American Numismatic Association convention, and the anticipation was unprecedented. This wasn't just another rare coin sale. This was an opportunity to own a piece of secret government history, a coin that represented a classified program, a specimen that had eluded authorities for 15 years, and most importantly, a unique artifact that could never be duplicated because the experimental program had been terminated and no more of these compositions would ever be produced. The auction house, Stax Bowers, decided to handle the sale with maximum security and publicity, placing the coin on a coast-to-coast tour where collectors could view it in person under armed guard. And the response was overwhelming, with thousands of people lining up at each stop to catch a glimpse of the Denver legend. When auction night finally arrived, the room was packed with collectors, dealers, museum representatives, and even government officials who wanted to see how high the bidding would go for a coin that had technically been government property before it escaped into circulation. The opening bid was set at $20 million, instantly making it clear that this would be a record-breaking event, and from there the price climbed rapidly as serious bidders competed. 40 million, 60 million, 80 million, 100 million, and as the price crossed the $100 million threshold, only 3 bidders remained active. A consortium of investors who planned to display the coin in a traveling exhibition, an Asian collector known for acquiring unique American rarities, and an anonymous bidder participating by phone who was later revealed to be a Texas oil billionaire with one of the world's finest private coin collections. The bidding slowed as it approached $120 million, with each increment now representing $5 million steps. And the tension was electric as the auctioneer called out $125 million with the consortium and the phone bidder still competing. The Asian collector had dropped out at $115 million, acknowledging that the price had exceeded even his substantial resources. At $125 million, the consortium consulted briefly and then raised their paddle to bid $128 million. And after a long pause while the phone bidder consulted with their advisors, the phone bidder came back with $129 million, causing murmurs throughout the auction hall because everyone could sense that the end was near and a record was about to be set. The consortium huddled again, discussing whether they could justify going higher, and finally, the lead member raised the paddle one last time and bid $130 million. And when the auctioneer turned to the phone bidder for a response, there was a pause that seemed to last forever, and finally the phone clerk shook their head. The bidder was done, they would not go higher, and the auctioneer began the closing countdown, selling at $130 million. Fair warning, at $130 million, sold for $130 million to the consortium. The room erupted in sustained applause, and Margaret, who was in attendance, was openly crying as she realized that her late husband's intuition to save an interesting-looking coin had just resulted in the largest sum ever paid for a modern American coin, providing her with financial security for the rest of her life and leaving a substantial legacy for her children and grandchildren. The $130 million sale made headlines worldwide and sparked congressional hearings about mint security and accountability, leading to stricter protocols about experimental productions and ensuring that such a breach could never happen again. But for collectors and numismatists, the hearings were secondary to the thrill of knowing that the Denver legend had finally been found, authenticated, and sold, validating years of rumors and speculation. The coin is now part of a traveling exhibition that visits major museums and numismatic shows. allowing the public to see this incredible piece of American coinage history. And experts estimate that if it ever comes to auction again, the price could easily exceed $200 million given the continued growth in the rare coin market and the absolute certainty that this is a one-of-a-kind specimen that can never be replicated. So what's the takeaway from these three incredible stories about Washington quarters worth $110 million, $120 million, and $130 million? The lesson is clear. Pocket change isn't always just pocket change. Sometimes it's life-changing wealth hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone observant enough, lucky enough, or persistent enough to discover it. Should you check every quarter that passes through your hands? Absolutely. It takes just a few seconds to examine a coin for unusual characteristics, weight differences, off-center strikes, strange compositions, or any of the error types we've discussed. And those few seconds could literally change your entire life if you happen to find a major mint error. Remember, the people who found these coins weren't professional numismatists with decades of experience and advanced equipment. They were ordinary people, a bank teller, a middle school student, a retired teacher, who simply paid attention and recognized when something didn't look quite right. The rare coin market continues to grow stronger every year, with new collectors entering from around the world and prices for major rarities consistently setting records at auction. So there has never been a better time to start examining your coins carefully and learning what to look for. Check the dates, check the mint marks, check the weight and color. Look for any signs of errors or unusual characteristics. And if you find something that seems even slightly off, take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication. Yes, there are fees involved, but they're trivial compared to the potential value if you've genuinely discovered a major error coin. And remember, the three coins we've discussed today represent just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to valuable Washington quarters and other modern coins that could be worth far more than face value. There are hundreds of documented varieties and errors across all denominations and years, and new discoveries are made regularly by collectors who refuse to treat their pocket change as just ordinary money. So the next time someone hands you quarters as change at a store, or you find quarters in your car or couch cushions, or you're rolling coins to take to the bank, take a moment to really look at them, because you never know when you might be holding the next coin that joins the ranks of these legendary specimens. The next discovery that shocks the numismatic world and transforms your life in ways you never imagined possible. Thank you for joining me on the Coin Hunter for this incredible journey through some of the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered. And remember, fortune favors the observant. So keep your eyes open, check your change carefully, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person with an amazing discovery story to share with the world.